Welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics with your host, once again, Cyrus here, and once again going into a controversial subject, but although I've probably touched on this in other videos, it rears its head again and again because I think it's one of those core issues that concerns the ethics, I guess, of spiritual topics, spiritual communities, especially by contrast to what I would consider to be the more made up philosophies like fundamentalist religion or fundamentalist atheism. So why pick like objective spirituality and not those philosophies? What are the differences? What are things that could be very problematic? Is all of it kosher to our sensibilities? So these are questions I ask myself sometimes, and the big issue is moral relativism, so I talked about that exclusively a couple videos back. So once again, it rears its head with a discussion on afterlife topics, and it just got me thinking again about this whole concept that basically you can murder a bunch of people and then, according to some of like the life between lives people who support these ideas, it's all in your soul contract. So if you pull the trigger, you murder somebody, you kill a child, you rape somebody, just think of the worst stuff imaginable. There was something in the news I just saw about a taxi driver in Saudi Arabia who beheaded a 6-year-old boy because the boy was a Shia Muslim and he is a Sunni Muslim. So I mean, just thinking about things like that, and then you go into like the journey of souls fundamentalism that believes that every time something like that happens, the killer is just playing a role, and everyone goes back to heaven where it's just jolly, merry, unicorns and pixie dust, and our actions here don't matter. Nothing matters. So obviously, I have big issues with that. And a lot of spiritual literature disagrees with that. So really nothing like this is said in the channeled books that I've read, like Silver Birch material. I really haven't seen any iteration of that in books like the original Seth books. I definitely haven't seen this in like The Law of One, which is another channeled book I like. I don't see this when we go into physical mediumship, like direct spirit communication, like asking dead people questions. I've never heard about this type of thing. I've never heard about this from any of my out-of-body travels, talking to deceased friends and family members. I think that they would probably say this is ridiculous. The great out-of-body explorer Jürgen Ziewe explicitly states he doesn't even believe in soul contracts, or if there are soul contracts, it's not like we imagine it to be. But then you have the works of the late Michael Newton, who basically introduced all these concepts and has created this meme in spiritual communities that something bad happened to you, someone's playing a role, and then you asked for this thing to happen to you. So we had somebody in the Afterlife Topics group come along today who basically successfully pissed off like half the people posting around that time when he was making posts, because he came in telling people that cancer is caused by yourselves. Like if you have a lot of anger, then you're the one who made the cancer happen, or you wanted the cancer to happen because your soul wanted to experience cancer. He literally said in a post about a couple who killed their infant child that it's just soul group stuff, and the murderers are playing a role, and the baby wanted to be killed. This kind of stuff, which, fortunately what I come to find is when people come along saying this kind of stuff, like the Michael Newton stuff, where these ideas came about, it hasn't taken such firm root because it goes against, I think, people's common sensibilities. So I was actually pondering this today, and I was thinking about William. So William was the guide of David Thompson, the physical medium. And David Thompson is this controversial character, but I went to a David Thompson seance in September, and I had William towering over me. David Thompson's like a short guy, like my height, like 5'9" or whatever. which I guess that's short these days, isn't it? There's all these standards. It's like you got unless you're like 6'1", then you're short, but whatever. But on that note, yeah, William is like 6'4", and it's a dark room. But there was this huge dude towering over me, and we had a discussion. And like I felt like William's voice popped into my mind, asking, like is any of this true? And I feel like, and I can remember like listening to a lot of lectures by this spirit person. Like basically, what he would say is something like, "My friend, only follow that which resonates in your heart to be true. If something defies your sensibilities and what you feel in your heart to be moral and just, then you can easily dismiss it as not being real." These are the kinds of things William would say a lot, because people would pose these types of questions in seances to him. And back in the old days, Victor Zamet would post these long seance discussions on his website. I think a lot of them have been taken down, maybe, or I'm not sure, but I can't so easily find the David Thompson seances. But I was listening to these a long time ago, like 15 years ago even, when they were going on the net a lot. And then I joked when I met William in person. It's like, "Hey, William, I've been listening to you on the internet for many years." And so they all got a good laugh out of that. But yeah, so I kind of thought back to what William would say about that, and because it really does defy sensibilities, which is that somebody who murders a child, murders a baby, that Saudi Arabian guy who beheaded a 6-year-old boy with a piece of glass in his, like, I don't know if it was like in his taxi, because he found out that the boy was a Shia Muslim, and he did this in front of the parents. Stuff like, I mean, it's just beyond horrific. And then we go into the territory of dark realms, dark planes. We talk about what Jurgen's experienced. We talk about hints of things I've experienced, dark entities, the dark spectrum. We talk about occultism in this world. I posted recently about Ronald Bernard, the guy who was like this banking tycoon, and he found out in the upper echelon, when once he was making like 10, 20, 30 million dollars a year, a lot of his co-workers in this major investment firm, or what, I don't know what was, a bank, or I don't know where he worked exactly. He didn't want to reveal it, but they were engaged in ritual pedophilia and ritual child abuse, and a lot of practices that they were doing, like kind of as ironic Satanism. Everyone dresses up like devils, and they walk around in circles and chant, and they have upside down crucifixes. And Ronald Bernard thought it was all just supposed to be like a bunch of fun, like a eyes wide shut kind of like occult ceremony, just having a laugh, like a frat party. But then they began bringing out little kids, and then that's what made him completely change his tune, and then he came out as a whistleblower. And when you delve deeper into that subject, you come to find that there's so much energy released from doing horrible things, that occultists will cultivate that power and then use it to try to get what they want, like magic. So even something like child abuse, like they'll do horrible actions and cultivate that power, gaining power from the dark side, just like you would imagine in pop culture, devil worshippers and things like that. Except there might not really be a devil to worship. It's just exploiting the dark spectrum. So that's why it's I think, so foolish to deny that evil exists. So to move along, so that's how I feel about this soul contract murderer business. And so we had this long discussion on afterlife topics, and so there was very interesting points made by one of the members who, she was talking about how she firmly believed in the Michael Newton life between lives type of stuff, until eventually she changed her mind about it. And so there was a very interesting discussion about why this belief system is so alluring, why it's so seductive, why it's easy to believe in these things. So this group member says, I used this material as my own tool previously to explain why I was treated poorly. Michael Newton does mention things like don't judge the homeless person or drug addict because they may have chosen to be this person beforehand and experienced this. And it's funny because I agree with that. There's no reason that I wouldn't agree with that. I don't judge homeless people or drug addicts anyway, but we have to look at the big picture. And I think a good way to tell if someone agreed, wanted to be in a situation in life is also if they find like a weird kind of satisfaction from doing it, right? So if somebody wants to be in a situation, they're like, get your hands off me, I'm doing what I want in life, and that's what they want to do. But if somebody is legitimately trying to get out of a situation like that, then it would be wrong to think, oh, they're just doing what they want to do, which that Michael Newtonism could potentially lead to assumptions like that too, which would not be good. But he also said something along the lines of things that we have all been murderers, and we all choose those things to be able to experience those things. So we're just these big, jovial, happy souls on the other side. We go to the astral bar made of energy. We all float in as these orbs of light because, when you start listening to these guys, they don't believe in like the astral world usually. They think, we're all non-physical orbs of light or whatever. And then you go to the astral bar and then you order a cocktail which just looks like another orb of light. It's like a tequila sunrise. You get a little pink orb of light, and then the bigger orb of light kind of maybe, I don't know, like takes a little tendril out and drinks the tequila sunrise orb of. I don't know how it works in those levels. I'm just glad I'm not on that level. But anyway, so you go to the spirit bar and you say, "Hey Bob, guess be a blast. Let's go become baby murderers. Let's go become rapists. Let's go become genocidal maniacs. Yeah, bro, that'd be awesome. Let's go tear it up on Earth. Let's kill a bunch of people and just spread misery and sickness and horror. Awesome, bro. Let's do it." And then they come down, they incarnate. And that's then they died and they go back and get awesome, man, we did that, check it out, like I was eating people, that's awesome, man, let's do it all again. So this is the perspective that this work is providing, and this is more or less, I'm just embellishing and telling a joke here, but that's what Michael Newton basically espouses. And he gets this information from hypnotizing people and then taking notes. That's where this information is coming from. So the poster goes on to say that can't you see the draw that when people are hurt or wronged, it helps them deal with that pain. So if somebody has done something awful to you, it makes it a lot easier to think, oh, it was meant to happen. That person's just playing a role. I'm playing a role too. There was no reason to hate this person for doing X, Y, Z to me. And there was no reason to hold that grudge. And on a surface level, it promotes a kind of turn the cheek mentality, which probably is better than it is bad, because it's about releasing anger, releasing hatred, and forgiving people, and looking at things in the big picture. I don't know if I think that's a good idea. As a one way of looking at something, I guess, to help heal from abuse, I see that. But what kind of value system does that teach, though? Because it's basically saying that if you are a victim of something, then it's like your fault because you're the one who chose this role in life to experience this thing. And I don't think that's the case. If you were a victim, I think somebody else did something to you. And I think it's much healthier if you want to do a turn the other cheek philosophy, as opposed to like the left-hand path of philosophy of like destroy your enemies. If you want to do the right-hand path philosophy and turn the cheek, wouldn't it be better to just think of it like, hey, this soul screwed up. They had a mission in life. They they probably want to be out of this bad position. They probably want to be a better person, but they've fallen back victim in themselves into this dark vibration, this evil spectrum. And they should be treated with compassion and hope that somehow they can be rescued out of this hell that they've created for themselves. So the poster goes on to say, she says, when I think about it clearly, though, it would be more like the soul is literally just stagnant within the body and not truly engaging. I guess it couldn't make people feel like they could do anything harmful and it would be okay to do those things. And then we have another long-time poster joining the discussion, basically asking about... she was a former materialist atheist, and in materialist atheist philosophy, basically the idea is we don't need a god to tell us what's moral or what's just, because we'll do what's just anyway. But is that different than Michael Newton? I'm just going to call it Newtonian moral relativism, because that seems to be the most apt way to describe it. Is Newtonian moral relativism different than that? And I argue it is, because it's creating an incentive to commit atrocities, because what we're learning, what's being argued is that no matter what we do, it's part of a soul contract, and we're all going to paradise anyway. And if you have an impulse to do something evil, maybe you were meant to do that evil thing because you're fulfilling a role that other people signed up to experience those things. So if you go and you go ahead and shoot the school up, then you're just fulfilling a role, and you're going to go to paradise anyway. So there are some quotes here by Michael Newton. In a 2000 interview, Michael Newton says, When I'm asked, well, apparently you don't believe in hell, that's the truth. I don't. There is no such thing in my mind. If there is a hell, it's earth. When people cross over into the spirit world, regardless of the type of life they led, they are taken into a heavenly place. What happens to them there, depending upon what they have done on earth, varies with each soul. Their state of mind can create a period of solitude, but then it's very interesting because, first Newton makes this claim that there is no such thing as a negative dark realm, which goes against so many spirit reports of rescue groups and dark planes and dark realms. So it's one or the other. So either Newton is right or all these other sources are right, including thousands of years of mystical tradition. Things we hear about, related to almost every ancient spiritual practice, as well as, modern spiritualist literature and communication with the other side. Even a lot of near-death experiences, like look at Howard Storm's near-death experience, many involving negative dark realms. And but then Newton is coming along and saying that's not true. So who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe endless amounts of literature on one hand, or what this guy is saying? Now this is maybe the key, and this is something I guess I'll leave this video off with. Newton went on to talk about he learned from some of his patient interviews that a Hitler-type person, it may end up, because they're so evil, being disassembled when they get to the other side. Higher powers decide they don't want this entity, operating in this capacity anymore. And so it could end up being transmuted into something else entirely. Or they would go to some other kind of world separated from us because of the level of their evil. So this, in many ways, it contradicts everything else he's saying. So in this case, spirit powers are recognizing evil as a separate, chaotic, destructive force that does harm to people. And when you get bad enough, when it's on the Hitlerian level, as he says, then there may be spiritual intervention to stop that. So now he is recognizing evil. And this is something I've also heard from other spirit sources, that if a soul is just evil beyond comprehension, it might actually get that the cosmic delete key may get punched on it, because it's like a cancer that's infecting the universe, and it eventually at some point higher powers have to come in and cut the cancer out. And I forget where I've heard this before. But it wasn't Michael Newton. It was one of these channel books. It might have been something from Anthony Borgia. I'm not sure. It could have been might have been Leslie Flint. I don't remember. But I've heard this concept before. So now once again we're recognizing that evil is real. So what's my final conclusion? My final conclusion is Michael Newton was confused. Michael Newton was communicating through patients, so it's like this very obscured channel of information, trying to understand afterlife conditions based upon a trickle of information coming through hypnotized patients. Some of those patients who were possibly just attempting to fulfill expectations of the person hypnotizing them. Possibly patients who want those ideas to be true, and possibly ultimately, the thing is I can't fully dismiss these ideas because there may be grains of truth behind all of this. Maybe there are special circumstances where a soul will decide, I need to get murdered to make up for something else I did that's hanging on my conscience. I killed somebody when I was on Earth, and I'm going to work with my guides to reincarnate and get murdered so that I can experience what I did to somebody else, and then I can work out my karma that way. I think that can happen. I think there could be weird special circumstances where maybe weird crazy souls decide to incarnate together and all be victims of murder, or something really bad happen to them for whatever reason. I think the big mistake here is people taking this Journey of Souls stuff and becoming fundamentalists, coming into the Afterlife Topics group and saying that in all situations a baby murderer is just fulfilling a role. They're just role playing, and that everyone goes back to heaven, and it's just happy, fun, sunshine, unicorns and rainbows for everybody. So this is like a fundamentalism that's developed, and people don't react too well. Like when this guy came into the group and was saying all this stuff to everybody, I wasn't too nice to him, I admit, but like everybody else was like ganging up on the guy too. No one wants to hear this, especially when you were a victim of something. Nobody wants to be victim blamed and be told, hey, you're responsible, you're the one who decided to get raped. That's the type of message that's coming across, and people in general reject this idea, and that's why ultimately this idea doesn't have completely mainstream appeal. I think people will read Journey of Souls because it's such a popular book, and I think hopefully most of the time people set that idea aside. I will tell you, since I came out with my books and began this whole journey, I've had countless people email me saying, I read Journey of Souls, this idea did not resonate with me, it's turned me off from the whole afterlife idea, what do you think? And then I direct them to a lot of more credible spirit sources, and usually they really like that. So it goes to show you, doesn't it? Well, I guess that's it for this video. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, because that'll keep this channel going. If you want to donate, I'm basically people who are donating to the work I'm doing, like some of the money I'm putting aside to be able to do things like eat while I backpack around Asia. And then I'm putting some of it also aside to hopefully fund in the future something along the lines of a supernatural investigation. I'm slowly making my way to Europe, and it would be fun to investigate that haunted forest. It's called Hayabaku or something like that, but it's like one of these vortex locations where people encounter extraterrestrials and entities from the other side, like just phase in from this hole, I guess, that's interdimensional. It'd be fun to investigate something like that, maybe with a small team, put it posted here on this channel. That's just one idea. So there's all kinds of cool things that could happen, but I need the funding. So if you want to support this work, then I encourage you to hit me up with a donation. Anybody who donates $30 or more, I can bring them into the Afterlife University alum group, where we do special interviews with guests. We do 8 classes a month, big in-depth discussions. So if you want to get involved with that, that's one way to do it. Otherwise, you can check out afterlifetopics.com, check out books like Understanding Life After Death, and I guess that's it. Let me know what you think. What do you think about A Journey of Souls? What do you think about this concept? Do you disagree with me? And if you do disagree with me, I'd like to actually hear some kind of way to justify this point of view, to justify this moral relativism. Definitely, would like to hear more perspectives about this. Okay, I'll catch you guys next time.